Hey, everybody. Howdy from blue state of Georgia, which has gone for Joseph R. Biden. I've lost track of how many times now. It's nice. It's nice to live in a battleground state, a blue state. It is not nice to have to continually talk about this garbage and to have to sit around waiting to hear what has happened as a president has invited lawmakers from a state in doubt to the White House in order to cajole them and try and talk them into invalidating an election result. It's weird. Weird little moment to be in, yeah. The the coup attempt that we're all sort of experiencing, suffering, waiting through. It's one of the most surreal things in my adult life, and that's saying something stuck in. That's a good way to put it. Uh, it's one of the most bizarre things I've gone through, and that includes uh, 4 years of Donald Trump, uh, 5 years of covering him. It's bizarre. Meanwhile, it went into overdrive yesterday with this bullshit presser from Giuliani and all of these people. That's a great question, Drew. They are calling it uh, Trump's new strategy. What is his roadmap to winning this election? It doesn't seem like there's a clear path to winning this election. And meanwhile, it's just like, no, he's not looking for a clear path. He's looking to bulldoze his way through a path. It's it's exhausting and weird, and it pisses me off. Meanwhile, so we watched it yesterday, take on this new tone. A weird thing happened. I've spent the past few days watching a lot of Newsmax and a lot of OAN just to analyze what they're doing. And I mean, both of them are just in hyperdrive. They are both absolutely obsessed with trying to slough off a little bit of Fox's viewing base. Meanwhile, Fox has done a weird thing where they're suddenly trying to find this path between Trump, Republican supporters, and just go through it. Tucker Carlson went after Trump's legal team last night in a really bizarre moment. Meanwhile, from this press conference, which was absolute fever dream, white paranoid supremacist paranoia through and through. I've been talking, God, I don't even know how long I've been talking about this at this point. The conspiracy theory component of all of this, the reactionary extreme right, it was all on display yesterday. It was disturbingly on display yesterday. We talk about it as a triangle. You have the idea of the puppet master. In this case, it's George Soros, and also they amazing cameos from somebody like a Hugo Chavez. Who thought Hugo Chavez was going to figure into American politics anytime soon? That was a that was a nice little invention that they brought back there. Whew. And all of the China is now in on the whole thing. Everybody, I think at one point, this is a pretty amazing little statement that was made. At one point, it was like everybody's in on it except for Donald Trump, which is just as pure of a statement of Trumpism as you can find. I've talked a lot about how this is a cult and how like the circle of the cult is shrinking. And now it's just the diehards and the grifters who are making money off the cult, and the Republicans who are gaining power from this cult. But there's the puppet master, which, going back to the protocols of the elders of Zion, as a Jewish puppet master. They wouldn't come out and say it that way, but it's George Soros. Shocker, shocker. The Scooby Doo kids took the mask off the old man at the amusement park. Found out George Soros. Who would have guessed it would be a Jewish puppet master at the heart of this giant scheme to steal American democracy? And then, of course, the second part of that paranoid conspiracy theory triangle is, of course, liberal traitors within the country who are working against the interest of the country. And then, of course, because of, we got to talk about Philadelphia, we got to talk about Detroit, we got to talk about all these corrupt cities, which just happen to be cities and urban centers. The third part of that paranoid triangle are people of color. And because they're white supremacist, Rudy and the whole lot of them, because they're white supremacist, well, they're just looking out for people of color who have been manipulated and lied to and just used as a weapon, which is, again, going back to that conspiracy. That's what it is. It's what it is. It was on full display yesterday. And it's incredible. It reached its final sort of evolution. Like this entire time, it's been inspiring, white supremacist and terrorist cells and terrorist attacks and all of that. That's been going for a long time, for a long, long time, over a century now, but in America particularly over the past few decades. And now it's reached its final level, which is we have to overturn this election. There's a conspiracy. And you'll notice, by the way, that the people involved in the conspiracy are Democrats, liberals, people of color, anyone who wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. Again, everyone's in on this except for Donald Trump. The purest distillation of Trumpism. Everybody is in on this except for Donald Trump. I don't know if y'all saw it. I almost shared it, but I'm kind of tired of sharing this bullshit, but I'll just mention it as an anecdote. Somebody called in to Rush Limbaugh today and was just crying, and Donald Trump's done everything for us, and this caller was just ready to die for Donald Trump. It's really weird, it's almost like the whole thing is a death cult. And they've been willing to die for Donald Trump for a while, but I'll tell you what, COVID has made it a possibility, and this coup attempt will make it a possibility. I want you to think about something. And by the way, it's 4 p.m. Eastern. Beautiful day in Georgia. Not going to complain about that, but it's 4 p.m. Eastern in Georgia on a Friday. I'm getting ready to, so I teach, so I'm going into Thanksgiving break. I couldn't get here soon enough. Meanwhile, here I am sitting here on a beautiful day in the blue state of Georgia. Proud blue state of Georgia. And I'm sitting here waiting to find out what in the hell is coming from a meeting between the President of the United States of America and a bunch of legislators from Michigan for the possibility that he might overturn a free and fair election in the state of Michigan in order to try and overthrow a free and fair election within the United States. There are two main goals right now that Trump's group is trying to do, and what a disgusting group it is. And by the way, I titled this video, Incompetent Coup is Still a Dangerous Coup. Like, Rudy is laughable, and he's such a mess. And I've talked about this, like, there are just people left and right who are talking about how Rudy Giuliani is just disintegrating and is just in the throes of madness right now. I mean, it's obvious that he is. Just because he's in charge of this thing or he's working on this thing, it doesn't mean that it's not dangerous. It doesn't mean that they're not going to try and figure out some sort of way, because the entirety of Donald Trump has been a combination of incompetency and malevolency. It's both of those things together all the time. He flails. The problem with America is that there has been a massive problem with America for a while. This system does not work, particularly when have just bad faith actors over and over and over and over again. And Donald Trump has proven that you can flail and throw yourself against the system until you find a weakness in the system. He keeps finding them because the system is decrepit and the system is weak and vulnerable. This coup attempt does not have to be competent to work. All they have to do is find a weakness. And part of the problem, and I'm going to talk about this more and more as we go forward, because it is obviously the problem of the moment, which is that reality is subjective. Reality is not objective. When we vote, we're engaging in a process and a project that is supposed to be objective, but it also simply reflects the subjective nature of reality. All Donald Trump has to do is win a couple of battles. He has to put all of this stuff in doubt. And by stomping his feet and screaming about all this, and again, I want to remind everyone, this is a total work and a grift. He's doing this to save his reputation. He's doing this in order to have economic incentives, but he's also doing it with the hopes that maybe something will work and he won't have to leave power, and maybe he won't be prosecuted, and maybe he won't be dogged to the ends of the earth because he owes everybody hundreds of millions of dollars. He's trying something. It's what he always does. His entire career has been predicated on him just trying shit. On top of that, even if it doesn't work, it's still going to inspire not just violence, but division on a destabilizing scale. This thing is incredibly dangerous. And by the way, I understand that there are people out there who are like, well, the laws are holding, the systems are holding. There's a couple of people out there who are being unbelievably irresponsible and just sort of scoffing at this thing. Make no doubt about it, there is a coup taking place in this country right now. Is it a competent coup? No, it is not. But that doesn't mean it's not dangerous. That doesn't mean that it couldn't work out. It doesn't mean that it couldn't have long standing ramifications. Why in the world would the Republican Party ever accepted an election loss again? This has opened the door for any election being called into question that doesn't go the way that the person running for election wants it to go. It used to be the idea of norms and tradition. You would move out of the way, you would bring in the transition, all that stuff. That's done. That's done. And I keep talking about this. I think right now, looking at this moment in history, that Donald Trump is going to be a precursor for something else. That something is going to happen in the wake of this. I do not think this coup is going to be successful. Knock on wood. I got a little wood here. I do not think it's going to be successful, but it's really problematic. And the people who are pretending like it's not problematic and it's not something to worry about and it's not something to be concerned with, they're fooling themselves and they're fooling you. How much violence do I expect? A good amount of violence. We're either, I mean, like if somehow or another we manage to avoid this coup, and my God, I hope we avoid this coup, and I think we will. You have fringe people right now, very, very extreme, dangerous people right now, who truly and honestly believe that they are invisible soldiers in an invisible war. If they think the election's been stolen and the Democratic Party is corrupt and taken over the country and that this is the end of their project, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they lash out? If you think there's no other recourse, that's what you would do. So yeah, I think there's going to be violence. Is it going to be asymmetrical? Is it going to be planned? I don't know. Maybe both. Maybe both. But you got to take this thing seriously. You got to call this out wherever you see it. You got to call it a coup. You have to tell politicians and pundits and journalists, call this a coup. Call it what it is because they know it. There's a word for this. It's a coup. An incompetent coup is still a dangerous coup, and people need to understand that. I hate this. Absolutely hate this. I don't want to have to sit here and wonder what the hell is going on in the White House as the President of the United States, who has obviously lost an election, is trying to backslap some people during a pandemic, by the way, into overturning the legal elections in their state. I maintain sanity and mental stability by staying busy and hoping for a better future, working towards a better future. If I just sort of if I just sort of gave up on this thing and became nihilistic. And I say this all the time. I was actually more nihilistic before I started covering politics and I started learning this stuff. I think the American people and people all around the world have done amazing things in spite of the oppressors who hold them down. I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope, but we need to recognize what's going on right now and fight against it. And also, I stay sane and somewhat stable because of all of you. You're all wonderful. All right, I just wanted to get on the record. It's insane. I know we can laugh at Rudy with hair dye, you know, streaming down his face. I mean, he's an absolutely laughable figure, and so is Donald Trump, and so are most of these people. But they're dangerous. Practical ways to fight against it: hold people accountable, make sure that they're calling this thing what it is. Talk to the people around you, communicate with them about plans. I keep saying this: if one of these things breaks through, and they actually are able to subvert the vote in some way, shape, or form, we have to be in the streets. We have to create a network, a complete grassroots network of mass protest. We have to be out in the streets. Some people have to support those people. We need to start reaching out to one another. We need to start trusting one another. We need to start building our own grassroots communities, relying on one another. We have to repair the atomization of society. We got a lot to do. A lot to do. But for right now, back to waiting to see what in the hell happens when the president breaks with a bunch of legislatures who might turn their backs on the election results in their state, and hoping that this coup just fizzles out and it's just unsuccessful. It's incompetent as hell. It's a laughably stupid coup because they have absolutely no ground to stand on. It's just pure paranoid madness. But it doesn't mean that it's gonna it doesn't mean that it's gonna end. What is the breaking point when it goes from a system needing reform to one needing replacement? It's a big, giant question that we need to reckon with and wrestle with and think about. All right, everybody. I'm hoping we have a new Milk Creek podcast out today talking about this stuff. Me and Nick do. We're hoping like hell we don't have to do some sort of an emergency cast this weekend. He just texted me a little bit ago and says it feels like an emergency podcast weekend. It feels ominous, doesn't it? It feels ominous. Feels ominous and heavy. I have hope. You should have hope as well. But call this a coup. Understand it's still dangerous. Try and have a good weekend, everyone.